This is a Play Your Way Network presentation. Get the full story at PlayLifeYourWay.com. In a world where comics, movies, games, rumors, and Kardashians come at you 24/7, three champions will rise to defend you from wasting precious time, money, and emojis. BK, Nate, and Derreck will show you how to do it the player way.
Ladies and gentlemen and everyone in between, with all due respect, this is your resident podcast, DJ BK, helping you understand how to curate your life and media
the player way.
That's right. That's right, and I never do this thing alone. I'm here with my co-captains, Derreck.
That's me. I may be embodying some Dirk Dallas throughout this episode every now and then because he does live in a fantasy world. So, we'll see what we can do. But that is me, at Corrupting System on Instagram. Maintaining system, recognizing the system, all things systems based.
That's exactly right. And I love that you said that all-time systems based, because along with us is our co-captain, Nate.
That's me. Yeah. That's me.
In all lowercase, that's me.
Exactly. And I love that all systems are ready to go. We are locked in. We are ready to make sure we check our grid, checking our location, because we're keeping it 100% sci-fi this week. That's right. This episode might even have a little bit of a conspiracy theory going on.
Conspiracy. But what if? It's a conspiracy?
Exactly. We're keeping it straight X-Files this episode, because this episode is the sci-fi episode. So the sci-fi episode, we're definitely...
Let's open up that time vault.
Exactly. We're about to do it.
Yes.
Yes, I am ready to play. That might be on somebody's list right there. But anyway, what we got going down, this is the Player Way Podcast, your best podcast that you can listen to that helps you curate your entertainment
the player way.
Brought to you by the Play Your Way Network. And this week we are sponsored by our new merchandise sponsor, Agency Cartel. You can go to agencycartel.com, the official clothing for basically weekday hustling comfort. So if you're a person that is going to the gym, if you're hanging out, if you're trying to get some things done around the house, if you're about to put in work and you're about to get that grind time, might as well be fashionable. Keep it going. Agency Cartel. So that's what's going on. You can get that at agencycartel.com, or you can get some of our official Play Your Way merchandise by going to our website, playlifeyourway.com, and clicking on the shop link at the very top of the menu. So now that we got the commercials out the way, what have you guys been up to this week?
This weekend, I'm just going to go ahead and I have to do it because my feels are still surrounding me. And an aura. I seen my feels aura.
Oh, that's right. Dragonball Super reached its penultimate episode and concluded this past weekend. Co-Captain Derreck, take it away, bro.
Man, this has been a long time coming. Pause. And this takes us back to times where there was a captain's trip in October where we first got a glimpse of Ultra Instinct, and when we told people that this series is probably going to stretch out to Yes, when we told people that this is probably going to stretch out till March, I got confused faces often, but here we are at the end of March, no less. And they're like, "Oh, well, it's because they skipped a couple weeks." Even then, I would put it at the end of February. Get out here! Shut up!
Yeah, you predicted it exactly right. I'll give that to you 100%.
Yeah, well, we were on that page.
We said we didn't think the series was going to go much further after we saw that.
Yeah. There's no way. Now, all they would do, in essence, now that we've seen all these powerful people, the only thing that would go from here is like, all right, well, let's just have these cross stories. Just go old school, because Dragon Ball Z, once they started to be like, hey, let's have the world tournament kind of being the base thing, they could just do this again, and then the bad guys show up between it. But it led to the pinnacle fight of just really seeing a whole bunch of Dragon Ball gasms all through it, where you even got to see a true Z-gasm where a split screen of Frieza and Goku powering up and delivering some some
finally
hellacious
teaming
combos.
up officially.
Yes. It was like, I was like, it's crazy to see that when so often they had begged Vegeta and Goku to do it for so long, and then Frieza's like, he's like, nah, yeah, I need your help on this because this dude ain't no joke.
And the plot twist of Android 17 still being alive.
Dude,
no one predicted that. No one
way.
online said that was going to happen.
No
that
one
was kind of
talking
crazy.
about
That was
awesome.
great fan service for me.
He had a great cog in that final machine that it even came together. Like, they wouldn't have won without him. Like, and it's true, a true team effort, true Dainana Uchi fashion. We can't even lie to that.
Indeed, I personally felt like the series finally got I felt like the Dragon Ball universe never got a true farewell, a good tie up all loose ends. The ending of Dragon Ball Z was kind of clunky. With the whole time skip thing, and then this whole idea that reincarnation is a thing, which kind of changed. I mean, it didn't change anything. I mean, we've seen that with the Piccolo character, that he was a reincarnated version of Demon King Piccolo. But to see it done across species, there was this little throwaway line that Goku said, "I hope you, hope you're reborn as someone who's good this next time." And then for there to be this. It was like, wait, what? What are we doing now?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
This series kind of helped allude to.
They polished that a little better.
Yeah, Oob was teased in this series a good little bit. In that Goku didn't just outright know who he was; he had to kind of be told who he was, and that he wasn't quite old enough to start fighting yet. But it kind of sets up for that last episode of Dragon Ball Z very well. So if you want to watch this all together as one thing. I love the idea that Goku doesn't know how to get back to Ultra Instinct. Therefore, it's very possible that Vegeta's stronger than him at this point.
Yep.
With his transformation that he kept intact.
He was like Ultra Blue, but without going Ultra, so it means it would still be within his parameter. He may have pushed himself outside of those limits, but his limits were far beyond what Goku's had to be, because Goku had to be at least at Kaioken just to even match him.
Yeah, what they did is they kind of put a book into that whole idea that Goku... It took Goku a lot longer to find the level beyond Super Saiyan, and he didn't use any aberrations of it, whereas Vegeta obviously has found that level beyond Super Saiyan Blue, so you could even say this is Super Saiyan Ultra Blue, or something like that. So he has that transformation, but who knows? You definitely still have Frieza reborn as a villain, still intact. But what does it mean?
With an army.
And they leave a nice note that says, if anyone ever arises, we'll be back. So leaving it open that if the Toriyama company, along with Toei Animation, if they could come up with an arc that's worth it, which I've already heard that they've already planned a film to come out after this. Did you hear about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, allegedly, it's supposed to be before and very Saiyan oriented, like a true Saiyan film, which the fans have been clamoring for something like that for a while. The fact that we got to see other Saiyans in a whole different universe reinvigorate and infuse that. We love the race of the Saiyans. They're our first antagonist, so. Why wouldn't they do that? Because how many questions are there out there? There's enough.
And they have other universes they can go to now, and each universe has its own, personality.
Exactly.
So you have,
and I love how they brought that together in the final scenes of this. Just exactly what each universe. It was very. I was very satisfied with how it went. Like it couldn't have been a more perfect Dragon Ball type of ending to me. Like, this is exactly how it should have always been. And then, in case anybody had to be like, actually, they went ahead and covered that with the Grand Angel saying, oh, Zeno Sama had this covered from the jump. So if it was going to be something stupid, like it was very appreciated that they took the time to even
Of
post
course,
that. This
tie it
wasn't.
up.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't. They knew that we're going here. We're running out of information for this story. We may have another story. We may not. They've left themselves open. But in this day and age, with the platform of social media that Dragon Ball Z never had, this is a great opportunity for them to go ahead and keep that churn and burn.
Exactly. Indeed. Well, that's what's going on. Unless Nate has something to add to this part of the conversation, I think we can move on with what we did this weekend.
I'm not gonna lie, work kicked my ass last week, so I spent the entire weekend outside, fucking enjoying the sunshine.
Nice.
It was 75 degrees out.
Oh, I hate
Happy
you.
spring. Happy spring.
Yeah, the last
Such
thing I
beautiful
wanted
weather
to
out
do
there.
was look at a fucking screen.
Exactly.
You know what? Actually, during work, I ran out of shit to watch, so I started, based on what you were talking about a few weeks ago, I started watching This Is Us.
Nice.
It's too,
Nice.
too fucking dramatic, honestly. Like,
Oh,
I
dude.
understand why people
The
like this
snowman
show,
didn't grow a heart
especially
on this
like why women. It's just it goes on too much. Like, it's eye rolling sometimes. It's like, look, real people's lives aren't this fucking dramatic. You know, it's how there's
I don't
20
know, Nate.
seasons of
Real
Grey's
people with
Anatomy.
feelings and emotions.
Exactly.
Not
Everybody's
androids
gotta
like
fucking
Nate
talk
saying
about their fucking feelings. Like, come on. You know, now I got to. It's like season 2. Kevin's got a problem. I can't wait for Kevin to go to rehab. You know, it's God.
Does that mean you
So,
made it
ladies and
through all of
gentlemen,
season
everyone
1, though?
between-
Does that mean
Huh?
you made
No,
it through
I
all of
mean,
season
not
1?
to say the show is bad, but sometimes it's kind of fucking eye rolling, like how dramatic they try to make things out to be. You know, everything's got to be a grand fucking gesture.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, everyone in between, Nate is the type of guy who, if you've been listening to this podcast for a long time, then you already know that Nate does stoicism.
The player way.
Okay, so take what he's saying somewhat to a grain of salt.
If you
The reason why
like
we love
drama,
having-
then this fucking show's for you. Honestly,
exactly, there
yeah.
you go. Nate is the reason why we love having Nate on the show is because he balances out some of our energies very well, and he keeps us from not going too far off one end or another. It makes us a very well balanced team. But Nate is the type of guy when we get to the end of a man trip or something like that, where Derreck and I are like, man, let's hug it out, man. We had a great bonding time this weekend. He's
We
like,
look around and Nate has already got in the Uber for the airport.
Nate is the type of guy who Nate's version of I love you is you guys are pretty cool. You know, like that's as far as Nate goes. And then he will quickly turn around and say, all right, enough of the fucking emotional shit.
Yeah,
You know, it's like
I don't need to.
so This Is Us is not
Yeah.
he's not a part of the target audience is what this is.
I'm not a very expressive person. I feel like I
Yeah.
show it through actions more than words. I hesitate
That
to
and
call
after,
it like
that and after an hour at bottle
reinforcement.
service.
Yeah, like I hesitate to call it reinforcement, you know, because people do
Yeah.
like to hear that. I personally, I don't need to, you know. If
Yeah.
I can tell by the way you act, that's enough
Yeah.
for me. So-
Exactly.
So this
So, yeah,
show
so
is
it's
very
it's a lot.
dramatic. It's very,
Yes.
you know, like the Toby's, everything he does is a grand fucking gesture.
What
All
it is,
right, this is the part where I really rolled my eyes. Like, Kevin
Okay.
gets hurt when he's filming the scene. You know,
with Stallone, right?
yeah, so he does
Okay.
the stunt, jumps, hurts his knee. And then later on, like, he's talking to Toby, I think, and Toby's like, look, you need to relax, you need your time, he just had the surgery, you need your time to fucking recover, blah, blah, blah. And Kevin goes to provide this fucking monologue about how his knee has already ruined his dreams once, and, you know, and he's not going to let it ruin his dreams again. It was kind of like, go fuck yourself, dude. You know, like,
It's a lot.
You're a highly
It's a
paid
lot.
actor. Like, don't give me this. I can't feel for you. You know, honestly, I can't. I'm not going to.
You got to meet Stallone, dude.
And then I
Relax.
knew, like, the minute he took his Vicodin, like, okay, now we're gonna go see Kevin has a problem. You know, it's
Well, and they kind of they kind of answered.
so
to
I
that a
can't
little
wait
bit.
for Kevin to goes to rehab. Like, I think,
Yeah, and definitely what Nate is getting at is that every series has its litmus, or not even that. It's, you know, each person, when you go into their house, their AC level, their thermostat is at a different place, and you're not supposed to touch that thermostat. So, if you touch a person's thermostat, they get really upset. So each series has its own thermostat. Either it's a warm-natured series or it's a cold-natured series. For example, a great series that I was reminded of this past weekend was AMC's The Killing. And the biggest problem I had with that series is that its thermostat was really cold. So to really connect with that series, you kind of had to kind of see, it was very scientific. It took a lot of emotion out of it. Whereas This Is Us is a very warm series. So their emotional tipping point is always at a high. Yeah. And they explain that why it is
about
that
emotionality.
Way. Exactly. He's so stupid. With the spit coming out of the mouth.
That's honestly what I kept thinking about,
Yeah.
like that, just these
Yeah,
actors
if you don't have a family that's at drama all the time, then it's hard to deal with this family. And at the same time, you connect with some characters that don't have the issues. I think that's honestly why the Black family in the series is so well liked by viewers, because when you go to their house, things are a little bit more chill. But you go to everybody else's house, and it's kind of everybody's on emotional edge all the time. And even the Black family part of the This Is Us, the husband, he has the same issues that his family does. So he's very super emotional, and his wife is not at all. In fact, there's a episode that came out toward the end of this past season where they talk about that and how his wife is like, this is exhausting for you to be like this all the time. You need to chill out. And they kind of have a fight because she's talking about how his family is like super emotional, but then he talks about how her family's not emotional enough. So there are some balances there, and you connect with certain characters that are more like you, but I can understand why Nate feels the way he does. But did you not have at least one episode where it kind of reminded you of your life a little bit and warmed your heart a little bit at least? Because you watch pretty deep.
Yeah, I've gotten through, I think, halfway to season 2. But granted, like, I'm watching it during work, so it's just kind of playing in the background.
And it is not the type of show
no,
you
my
can watch in the
family is
background.
not like this. We're not an emotional family at all.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe
saying.
it's just I don't connect with it too much. And not to say the show's bad. Like I have enjoyed it I just want to see how Peter Petrelli dies. Like I know it burns.
Okay.
but I want to see.
So my point earlier about there's something that catches every person is there. So now you're like, okay, because are they not good at plot twists?
And, like,
in the show?
What example?
I mean, pretty much every episode has some sort of plot twist to it. Like something, there's an aha moment in every episode.
So a lot of this I already knew because a lot of the women at work love this show and they talk about it.
So they kind of spoiled it for you.
There
a
are
little
things
bit.
I knew, like even the first episode, where they kind of show the parallels and you find out that's the parents and these are the kids and one's adopted, like that. I knew all that.
Okay,
I knew.
So they kind of ruined some stuff for you.
Yeah,
Good job, guys.
Well, I mean.
Because that's really the hook of the show.
Yeah,
that's really the hook of the show. The real hook of the show are these plot twists that are coming, and the fact that it's an asynchronous timeline. So at any time it can jump back, and a whole episode can be back in like the 70s, but then the next episode could be completely in the 2000s. So like you never know when it's going to take place, and it kind of helps that way. But if you know the plot twist, it kind of ruins it for you. But I'm glad to hear that there's at least one plot twist that tickled your fancy, and it's how Peter Petrelli does.
Well,
So
I know
that
he
works.
burns, but I want to see it.
But how exactly?
Yeah, because
It's touching, man. It is touching.
Does he have a rival? Perhaps?
Exactly.
dude, he's just as annoying as he was in Heroes. You know,
He's too good. He's too good. And even when he's not too good, he's still annoying.
yeah.
No man can be that perfect.
That's what I say. You know, all
Yeah.
these like, oh
Yeah.
god, that's it. I have
He's
nothing
too
else.
perfect.
Yeah.
Even when he's an alcoholic, he's like. Even when he's not a good guy, he's
He's
still a
going
good
through
guy.
the 12 steps while he's being an alcoholic.
Yeah, and the son
sorry
even
for what
walks in on him, and he sees like the dad praying, doing the 12. God, give me the serenity. I'm like, God, you know.
And in real life, dads are dicks, man. Like in real life,
I was reminded
every
today,
dad does at
they're
least
like,
one
why do
thing
you always
that
scare your
scars you
kids?
for the rest of your life.
I have to scare them because I was scarred.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's just you
Got
pass
to.
it. That's what you got to do.
At least one thing happens that if a story's told out of context when you're an adult, people are like, "Who is your dad again?"
Yeah,
You know, like they hear half the story, but they don't
They're
understand. Like,
but dads sufficiently prepare you for the cold nature of real life. I will say that.
I'll
I will
give you
say
that.
Get ready for
100%.
somebody who you thought was your friend to be like, no, I actually think you're an idiot. You thought we were close friends. Oh! Like, oh, it's cool. My father prepared me for this.
exactly.
I support you in all you do
Absolutely.
in life. Things that I've never heard.
So we got a good little episode going on here. So to round it out, it sounds like none of us actually ended up going to the theaters to see Pacific Rim 2. Two headlines came out this weekend. One on the Hollywood Reporter saying that this month, March of 2017, has been the lowest March in many years in theaters. So Black Panther is continuing to wreak havoc, even down to the fact that even after being this past weekend, it finally surpassed The Avengers as the top grossing MCU film, period.
In
So,
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
6 freaking weeks.
Yeah.
At a non, this is not summer blockbuster time of the year though. So
No.
that's I mean your preface was perfect.
Yeah.
That's just
So to do that at a time where there's not a lot going on, it shows that they did a good job of picking the time of year for it to come out around this competition. It finally was dethroned as number one film after, was it 6 or 4 weeks?
It's 5
5
weeks
weeks.
at number
At
one.
5 weeks
so
and one-
this 6 weeks.
Exactly.
And
Exactly. So-
it still did 17 million this
Exactly. It
weekend.
did still 17. Its number one competition, which was Pacific Rim 2, Pacific Rim Uprising, better titled. It delivered an estimated 28 million according to boxofficemojo.com. I'm hearing mixed reviews. According to Rotten Tomatoes, audience score is only 57%, which means it's a loss. Tomato meter is even lower at 46%.
It's a
I don't
monster
expect,
movie. Yeah, like your
it's a
expectations
sci-fi
should be
monster anime flick type of film
There you go.
without that source material. So there is, unless you were a fan of the first Pacific Rim, which was not as well received as you might imagine, but it is going to be a great film to watch on Redbox or Netflix later on down the line. So I'm saving that for that. A lot of the films that are coming out here in March that I'm hearing are hurt bombs, I'm saving for later so that I have something to watch when we get to the summertime and we have some duds coming up. So as a result, what we did watch instead, my wife and I, we did get out, went to FYE. It was really kind of cool to see how FYE has changed in a world where Toys R Us is going out of business fast. And I don't know if you guys heard, but there is a GoFundMe that has reached, I want to say, 200 million to save Toys R Us. Did you guys hear about this?
I did not hear about this. And
Yeah, I believe it's 200 million. Let me look it up. Y'all
we
look it up
office
as well.
space that algorithm to the Play Your Way network somehow.
No way.
Exactly.
Move the
Why
decimal
do
over
people
6.
want to save this?
Nostalgia, dude. For the same reason I'm wearing this patented Tim Burton Batman insignia cap. It's crazy. Let me look it up real quick. 200 million Toys R Us.
It has raised over 200 million.
Oh, you got it up? Go ahead and read a little bit of the headline.
They have a 1 billion goal. Donate now to help hashtag Save Toys R Us. And Toys R Us is on the verge of permanently closing its doors. It feels like the end of an era, with sad headlines spreading across news and social media, but there's time to save it, and you can help. And that's the crux of this campaign. It started in Van Nuys, California. $200,048,314 has been donated in 4 days, spread across 1,593 people. That's a good amount per person.
Goddamn,
are these just like
honestly?
Are these
There's
actors
a lot
donating
better things you could spend $200 million on than a goddamn fucking toy store?
Isn't it crazy? And
It's
you know what's sad
stupid.
about it is everybody who's donating, obviously, they're either doing it out of just being funny, or they just don't understand how business works.
No.
That's not how any of this works.
This isn't gonna do
the best
anything.
thing for you guys to do is take all 200 million of that and go buy toys. Because that's
go
why they're going
clear
out
out
of
the toy
business.
shelves.
Exactly. Help them liquidate their assets and help them go out of business in style. That's all you're going to do. Thank you for helping us close out close to in the red. But no, it's not going to happen. What would be a better idea is to create a fund for all of those people who no longer are going to have jobs.
Yeah,
They're going to need
pensions.
unemployment coverage in this period of time. That's who we need
Cobra.
to care about. Exactly. That expensive ass Cobra that nobody ever wants to get.
No.
That's how you know you really lost your damn job when Cobra comes to your house. It's like, oh, it is really over now.
It's really over.
But yeah, so that's what's going down right there. Nostalgia is one of those things that a lot of stuff is going on this weekend. So when we went to go to FYE, it was really kind of cool to see how they've kind of revamped things. I think FYE, as long as they keep this idea of being kind of like, same thing with Spencer Gifts. Find that random shit, those tchotchkes that when you go to the mall, you're walking around with your wife as you get older, you want to go out and just get out of the house and do something. Those, oh, I need this even though I got 10 of these at home, or I always wanted one of these but I don't need it at all. Impulse buy. Got to capitalize on impulse buy in order for it to work nowadays. And learn from Amazon. Not Amazon, learn from Toys R Us. What put Toys R Us out of business was them outsourcing to Amazon. So, you know, figure out a way to sell your wares in a direct way. A place like Toys R Us, they had their niche. There's no way. I mean, if people are giving $200 million just because you're closing, what were you doing with your marketing then?
Yes.
Like, if they're
you were
willing
able
to
to
give this
raise
kind
that.
of money now that you're closing, that means
Who
they would have
raised
given that
you?
kind of money to keep. Who raised you? Shout out to TK Kirkland. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of it's insane that a company like that just had their fingers so off the pulse. So anyway, in addition to kind of going walking around the mall and lamenting on our childhood dying,
That's nuts, man.
Rachel and I, we binged watched this series that everyone has been kind of talking about online on Netflix, and it's called 7 Seconds. It's a series. It's so hard to describe what the series is about, but I'm going to make an attempt. Take Sopranos.
Ooh, okay.
Sopranos, The Wire.
I've heard a lot of buzz about this one.
I mean,
I
it's so
haven't
many
made it
great
over the hump,
series. I mean, who else? Scandal. Take every great series in the last 10 years and distill out the best parts of that series, and that's what this series is about. 7 Seconds. I don't want to spoil anything. Many series, I'd be like, oh, I want to talk about the series on the show. I'm telling you, if you guys take a Saturday and binge watch 7 Seconds along with your significant other or your family or whoever it is, I mean, it's not for little kids, but it's with somebody you actually care about that you can kind of have dialogue with while it's on, then you're definitely doing binge watching
The Player Way.
by watching 7 Seconds. It stars this young lady named Claire Hope Ashity. She plays this attorney called KJ Harper. Shout out to KJ. And so it also has a bunch of other characters that you're like, oh yeah, I know about this. I've seen that person from that show. The most notable actress in the entire show is Regina King, who, if you know anything about Regina King, she was a voice actress on Boondocks. Yeah, she's been on a lot of movies, and she's one of those actresses that she always does a damn good job. So she's in it.
Enemy of the State. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And there's other actors, but none of them that you would recognize right off of the bat by me saying their name. Even down to the lead actress, Claire Hope Ashity. She was in Children of Men, which is a sci-fi film that is really awesome, and it may be on somebody's list down the line. But she does a great job. But it kind of battles the backdrop of the show is going back to these mysterious like nights out that African American men tend to have out, or they're on their way to get gas, or they're on their way to get a package of Skittles or something like that, and all of a sudden they end up dead. And examining what that's about. So on its surface, it's about blue lives versus Black Lives Matter, but there's so much more to the show, though. Like I said, there's some Soprano vibes to the show. Definitely some notes. Like when you watch, you're like, oh yes, this is like season 2 of Sopranos. But then there's also some Scandal in there. There's also definitely some Wire, like from The Wire. There's some stuff that feels like it's ripped. Like there's some scenes when they're on the street dealing drugs, Nate, and it's like, damn, dude, like this feels like The Wire. Like, and during those scenes, I was like, Nate would love this show. And then there's some twists and turns there that I'm like, Derreck would love this show. But they hit all the notes. They hit them successfully. They don't overdo it. They really go into the ennui of when you lose someone in your family and what that's like. What it's like to be in the hospital on a loved one's last few days. And, you know, when you're in your head, you think they're getting better and things like that. I'm not spoiling anything. You can see all this pretty much in the trailer. But I'm just telling you, if you watch 7 Seconds on Netflix, you're definitely doing your whole binge watching weekend.
The Player Way.
And so that we're going to wrap it up just like that. Great show, though. Anything else that's coming up of note this coming week that y'all want to keep an eye on?
I'm just saying that Netflix is, we keep saying this, but they've been stepping their game up with some great classic movies as well. Like, they have Casino, Goodfellas is on here.
Man, I was just watching a video online earlier today about why Goodfellas is so good and why it's like, man. I mean, Goodfellas, Casino's a great film. And in many ways, it improves upon Goodfellas, but where it'll never beat Goodfellas is that, I don't know. I kind of feel like Casino is almost like a sequel to Goodfellas in many ways. You can have Goodfellas without Casino, but you can't have Casino without Goodfellas. and the reason why I say
feel
that,
like Goodfellas, like Casino, I feel has like I don't know, this is just my own words. Of course, my thoughts and opinions are my own corrupting the system. I feel like Casino really frames and set the parameters for a street hustler getting somehow into the corporate world of being a criminal.
What Casino is about is a true story retold about how, first of all, Las Vegas was built, first and foremost, and how
it was built by Goodfellas,
and how some criminal families almost made it legit, and how many criminal families most likely made it legit. Mm-hmm. If you go to the Mob Museum, Mob Museum in Las Vegas, to me is one of the best museums. I'm a huge museum geek. I love history. I'm a big history buff. Shout out to history buffs on YouTube, by the way. If you guys want to get into a show hole on YouTube, there's this amazing channel called History Buffs, and it's about real history things that happen in movies, and they explain all of the Easter eggs as to how a film matches up to what really happened. They talked about Tombstone and like what was real within Tombstone and what was not, who was rioter really versus how it was depicted here. Casino is another one, and they talk about Goodfellas as well. But if you go to the Mob Museum in Las Vegas, when you're out there next time, they have exhibits on Casino and Goodfellas and how these films literally, even down to like, you know, in Casino, they talk about the guy who's being chased. At the end, they show a guy who runs down to Cuba to get away from everything, and you see him being chased through like this hotel.
Through people eating and all. Yep.
the hitman in that scene is the guy who actually did that in real life. The guy chasing the actor really did kill somebody that way in real life. And he was just on the set, and no one knew that he was the hitman. And he was making a comment to one of his friends who was an advisor on the film. And so they pulled the director over, and he goes, yeah, this guy needs to talk to you. And he's like, yeah, that's not how it was done. That's not how the guy got killed. And he goes, how do you know? And he's like, well, I kind of was there. He goes, what do you mean you were there? It's like,
don't worry about that.
I was there. And he goes,
I was there.
Do you mind showing us how it might have been done? And he goes, sure. You want me to get in that costume and do it? And he's like, yeah, I'll show you exactly how I did it. And he shows it. So, yeah, like even down to like the guy who's at his mom's restaurant or his mom's grocery store, and he's like squilling on everybody. Real life, like real rap raw. So both of these films, Goodfellas and Casino, I mean, it's crazy to see how our world used to be and just what is going on even now. So yeah, so I know you watched some Casino this past weekend, huh?
I did, and I'm not even going to say it's crazy. I'm reminded of the difference between old school criminals who still had that morality code versus current like CEO businessmen criminals who don't even have that level of respect to even at least tell me to my face how you're gonna screw me over on this deal. You know what I mean? Like,
well, and I would even say this. I would even say to this,
Sopranos
what
code.
Those two films do a great job of is they show you how everyone says that there's rules to the game, and when everything is good, they're obeying the rules. But to get ahead or to keep from getting tossed, they all betray the rules. And then when someone rats or when someone betrays, then everyone looks and says, no, you're betraying me. Like, it's like, no, that's how it goes. So, like, yeah,
that's the
I
real
agree
game,
with you,
the
but at
true
the same
game
time, what
between-
makes these movies so great is they show people in truth how things really go down. Like,
Pesci.
one of the best depictions of this is when you watch the Goodfellas film, and when they're digging that ditch, there's this red aura everywhere, and you're like, why is everything so red? And you don't notice it the first time you watch the film, but when you go back and watch it again, you're like, man, why is it so
obvious.
red? Well, Martin Scorsese was trying to show people like this is the act that caused everything to go bad. Like, so this is where they all messed up. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think there's a romanticism of the life, if you will, quote unquote,
of course,
that has to be there. But at the same time, you got to show it for what it really is. For example, at the end of Sopranos, I was watching a video on that recently, and part of why the director didn't want to give you the satisfaction of seeing the death of the ending, if there was a death, because he still won't give you a definitive answer. His hint is that people want to see Tony's guts spilled so that they can feel like they're better than him, even though you relished in being down in the mire with him and you love seeing him kill people.
That's what
you want to see him kill people so you can feel like you're better than him. But in actuality, Tony Soprano's favorite film moment he repeats over and over is when Anthony in The Godfather goes to the restroom and gets the gun and comes out and kills the guy. Well, ironically enough, he thinks that he's Anthony in the film, but really he's the guy that gets shot. Tony Soprano's not the main character in the true story. He's a side character that has to get shot in order for the true mob boss to rise again. So it's interesting how all that works. But yeah, David Chase is the director of Sopranos. There's whole classes taught on how David Chase ended that series. But yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Casino. Great film, great experience. And speaking of great films and great experiences, if there's nothing else for the good of the order, it's time to get on with our exclusive of this episode.
Exclusive. The Player Way.
Exclusive.
Yes, it is going to be the episode 45 is AKA the sci-fi episode. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down our top 5 lists. If you don't know the rules of the game, as we're leading up to episode 50, which is going to be our best films of all time, episode. Ooh. Exactly. We're going to be leading up with different genres and different idiosyncrasies. To give you a quick rundown, this episode is going to be sci-fi. The next one's going to be best television drama / series. The one after that will be situational comedy sitcoms. After that, it's going to be best horror films of all time.
You just blew some people's minds that did not realize that sitcom was short for situational comedy.
Exactly. Then we're going to have Avengers Infinity War kill list, so we'll take a week off because the most important thing in the world at that period of time will be, let me get them dead ass, let me get them stones, homie. Exactly. And then episode 50 will be the best films of all time, and we're tossing around.
Don't touch my spaghetti.
Exactly. Have you seen? Anyway, let me not get on. Let me stay on track. And then, of course, like I said, episode 50 will be the best films of all time, and we're tossing back and forth this idea of maybe doing the worst films of all time the week after that. We did something similar to that around Christmas time at the end of the year, where we talked about the best films of 2017 and the worst films of 2017. So what we'll probably do is the best and worst films of all time. So that's coming, and we're going to help you get your list curated
the player way.
No next buttons here.
Exactly. If you like to play along, feel free to comment. People send me chats and DMs every now and again, tell me things that they liked or they didn't like, and we always will kind of mention it on the show. Shout out to Jerome Stewart. He hit me up and he was like, I hated the last episode of Dragonball Super. I thought it was stupid. So we always are going to mention viewpoints to give that. We're one of those podcasts where we're going to tell it like it is and what the temperature actually is outside, as opposed to pissing on your leg and telling you it's raining. So that's what's going on, giving you the really good rundown.
The player way.
And with no further ado...
Bitch, what?
I said with all further ado, okay? No further ado. We're going to move on and get this thing going with the top 5 sci-fi list. Anybody got some honorable mentions?
You want to go around and do some honorable mentions before we get to number 5?
Let's do it. Since you spoke first, let's let you go first.
All right. I definitely have some honorable mentions. I'm going to give the Alien franchise an honorable mention. None of their movies made my list, but I definitely need to give
none of them made my list either.
Same thing with the Terminator franchise, even with its rebirth and everything. I would say excluding Terminator 3, but TX did corrupt the system, and I have to just still give that one some props. Nice. Back to the Future, District 9, Fifth Element, Dune. That's definitely a close one in my heart.
Yeah, that's that nerdy one. That's like nerd respect
all the way
when
in.
You mention Dune. If you want to see how much weed a dude smoked in college, mention Dune.
and Videodrome. That's one of my
nice.
That's a crazy cool movie, and like I said, the special effects for the early '80s were kind of next level, and it's still trippy to watch. Kind of like John Carpenter's The Thing. It's very still trippy to watch, even from the early '80s. So if you ever get into what can I do for the next 2 hours, pop up some James Woods Videodrome, BK, and you might be like, man, let me go.
I'm surprised you didn't mention Lawnmower Man in this. If you go in that direction,
I didn't.
And then moving on with Nate. What are your honorable mentions, Nate?
In no particular order. Children of Men, Martian, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Minority Report, and Snowpiercer.
I love you.
Ooh,
because Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and Children of Men both made my honorable mentions as well. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Let's talk a little bit before we get started. 2001: A Space Odyssey is also on my honorable mention. I know that most people would expect that to be a number one on most people's list. The thing about it, 2001: A Space Odyssey is it's one of those films that is not super enjoyable to watch. Yes, it did a lot for it, but what takes a motion picture from being just a film or a motion picture to being a movie is when you want to see a movie, you want to be entertained. So, yeah, 2001: Space Odyssey is definitely one of the typifications of what it means to be a sci-fi film. Limitless is also on my honorable mention, and Jurassic Park is also on my honorable mention. So, what makes a great sci-fi film? We talked about that's kind of the essence of what these episodes are about, is to help you understand how to curate your genre understanding.
The player way.
So we've talked about all of the other genres up to this point. Sci-fi is all about solving the problems based on scientific solutions alone. There is no magic. There will be no magic systems in any of these films. If there's magic systems in a film, if there's a metaphysical way to fix something. You will hear the fight. Exactly. If there's a metaphysical way to fix an issue, it's not a sci-fi film. To Derreck's credit, when he mentioned that he did not have any Terminator films on his list, that's why I don't have any Terminator lists on my film as well, because Terminator wasn't created to be a sci-fi series. It was created to be an action series. It eventually became a sci-fi series, but the more it became a sci-fi series, the worse the ratings got on the film. So the deeper they went, the best they ever got was in T2, and I fully expect that if it's on Nate's list, it's going to be only T2 and that it won't be any other one. So the thing
that was
about
his number
it
one.
is,
he just had to figure out the other four, right?
Yeah, and that's the other thing.
I don't like to. If I use a movie, I'm not going to use it in another list.
Well, there you
T2's
go. Well,
an
because
action
it's the
movie.
best in that particular genre. That's why I thought it was great in an action genre, because the solving of the solutions, again, when we go back to what we talked about last week, we talked about what makes an action film is the solving of the solution in the action genre is through the most non-digital way possible, which is bone marrow crashing with sinew.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So what?
I am Ripper.
That's the whole
Terror,
thing. If you watch
slasher.
T2, if you see T2, what makes T2 work is they take an analog. It has digital aspects to it, but an inferior piece of technology takes out a better piece of technology with just wit and just pure blunt force trauma. And in sci-fi, it's all about solving the solutions with using the technology against itself. So as you think about what makes a great sci-fi film, make sure you think about those solutions and within that world, and how does technology affect our experience as human beings is another aspect of what makes sci-fi sci-fi. Which is why Nate and I love Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. It takes the whole romantic comedy, and it turns it on its head by putting in, what if you broke up with someone and you had the ability to make your bad memories of them vanish with just a click of the button? What would that look like? That's what sci-fi is about. Give me a problem, and I'm going to give you a technological solution to fix it. And sometimes that technological solution, more often, and I would say probably 80% of the time in a sci-fi film, technology makes it worse. It is the chocolate syrup that you thought was chocolate syrup, but it's really shoe polish.
That is sci-fi to the max. Don't worry, we'll solve this with more technology. Our problem has been amplified. Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
And so it makes you realize, hey, I know you want it to be the future, but enjoy being where you're at. Enjoy being where you're at, because one day you won't be there anymore. And, I constantly tell people, I feel like we're in the best time of life period. And I feel like we're in a great armpit of history where we're within technology, but we're not completely ruled and dominated by it, because there will come a time where technology is going to rule a lot of it. And if you think healthcare is expensive and it changes your quality of life, just get ready for that whole repo men reality. And therefore my number 5, starting with me, is going to be a tie between her and repo men.
Oh, nice.
And the reason why it's a tie is because I wouldn't do a tie on a higher film. I just couldn't decide between this on which is 5 and which is 6. Repo Men is about that future where you can extend your life, but you got to rent to own your kidneys, or your legs or whatever. And what happens when you don't make them payments? What is that world going to look like? I can see this happening. And what happens to humanity when you're reduced down to body parts in payments? But then you got Her as well, which is about a similar thing, but it's about your emotions and, what does it mean to be in a relationship? And there are actual guys in Japan right now who are actually legally married to Nintendo DS machines. And they're these sim girls that they are in relationships with. Like, this is a movie for that type of guy. So,
shout out to Krieger from Archer.
So, my number 5 slot is taken up by these two futures based on what does it mean to be a human. So, there you go. That's my number 5 there.
I have one comment, if you will, a commiseration, if you will.
Okay.
That just because I enjoyed that movie, Repo Man, as well. I was just so you already know where I'm going with this. The fact that this started in a backstage basement play, Repo the Genetic Opera was this premise, and it became a film, which not many people know about it. A rock opera, if you will, and this premise of that, and Jude Law and Forrest Whitaker, definitely got to capitalize on that they never even had to even mention it. So that tells you the prowess of it, and which is another reason why I have to commend you even picking it over the other one, because like I said, that's the same premise. It's just this one did it and made it real, the sci-fi aspect of it.
And another reason why I felt like it was okay to make it a tie, fight me over it if you want, is I could see these two films taking place in the exact same universe.
Absolutely.
Like, in the same society, same period of time.
Equilibrium. It makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I'd say Equilibrium would be an offshoot of that same environment, but I see what you mean.
I put yes, I would put them existing, Equilibrium, and then devolving all the way down to Darkman, even.
Ooh. Throwback. So number 5, Derek, since you got the loudest voice in the room next, let's do it.
My number 5, I also had a tie. One for honor reasons, and one for it's named, worked its way into my lineage. And my number 5, apropos, is Fifth Element, along with Metropolis, the original 1927 silent film.
I'll let you do that. I'll let you do that for that reason. So really what we're seeing is your real number 5 is the Fifth Element. But for honor reasons, you're putting Metropolis in there. And same thing with me. Repo Man is obviously my number 5, but I'm adding her there as like a really close honorable mention there.
I have to put Metropolis in there because it's been redone like 8 or 10 times, and even what's crazy,
and it's not been redone any better than the original.
No,
in my opinion,
there's just no way. This was an eye-opening film when I watched it as a kid. It was an eye-opening film when I watched it as a teen. It's an eye-opening film even still to this day. You get something different at different stages in your life. And just the fact that this movie is nearly 100 years old is a testament that this is a great film. Now, leading into my it literally does hold up. There's movies just from 5 years ago that don't hold up, and then leads me into Fifth Element, of course, with our Corbin Dallas in there. Chris Tucker at one of his.
A name so nice, you named your son after him.
A name so nice. Exactly. And this is as you say, with technology in essence, Lilu was the technology. We had to defeat another sort of technology. He knows it's a multi-pass. And I had to put this because we have our very own Corbin Dallas on the show. Even it's me, that's me in all lowercase.
Shout out to Nate.
The honor was
our real Corbin Dallas.
That's right. Number 5, Fifth Element, tied with Metropolis. Really, the godfather to all sci-fi movies thereafter is Metropolis.
So just to keep it fair, and to be clear, it's not really Metropolis is his close, real close. Right after Fifth Element,
yes.
Metropolis is his true honorable mention, and her is my true honorable mention as well. Because Nate gave a face like, "Oh, so what we doing? We doing ties on number 5 now? Is that what we doing now? You got to give a definitive one." So that's what we doing. We give a definitive one. We gonna clean it up, Nate, before we get over to Corbin Dallas.
Number 5.
What was the name? What was the name of the planet they were going to on the cruise?
Floston Paradise.
That's right. Nate, how you liking your trip to Floston Paradise, bro?
It's fine.
Yeah, that's exactly how he does it. Yes.
One up. I get.
They coming. Exactly. All right, Nate, you're number 5.
Tiny Liston. I mean, come on.
So I don't put as much thought in it as you guys do on the fundamentals of sci-fi.
Spin the wheel.
I honestly go by how many times I've seen the movie.
Boom.
Pretty much.
Hey, I'm good with that.
So number 5 for me.
Each of our lists are that's the beauty of it.
Fucking Starship Troopers. Watched as a kid, still love it. It's cheesy as fuck.
Casper Van Dien.
I get that to you.
Yeah, it's just a fun movie, and if I ever see it online, I will watch it. Yeah, absolutely.
One of those movies where, as a kid, you didn't expect to see boobs, but you're like, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Introduced us to Denise Richards. You know, she got
Hell yeah, dude.
20
That's
minutes
what her
of
whole
fame.
career was about. We know what it was about. Yeah, it was a very nice series. It actually ended up spawning anime adaptations.
I've never seen any of the direct-to-DVD sequels. No.
Yeah, they had a really good CGI cartoon series that spawned off of it, which in my opinion was actually pretty good. The whole idea, in my opinion, I think there wouldn't be a Pitch Black if not for this film. I feel like this was the precursor to Pitch Black. In my opinion, I think it's slightly superior to Alien, the whole Alien franchise, because Alien is a great franchise, but you might actually see some Alien stuff on my horror list, because again, there's different sci-fi films that are about what the solutions, the solving of them about. Alien really is a horror film, and they even say that, like, the creator of the film even talks about how it's really a horror film. What's the other one? The Event Horizon, also a horror film. Jason X,
definitely
obviously a horror film, but it has sci-fi elements to it. But yeah, Starship Troopers is all about that. We have a threat; it's on its way. How do we prevent it from getting to us? Let's take the fight to them. And it's a pretty good film. So I'll give you that.
Yeah.
I feel like if there's going to be a genre if you Google whatever movie that we are talking about, and this is just straight from Corrupting the System, and it gives whatever genre the primary one is, that will allow it to be on whatever list. But if the secondary one is like Alien, perfect example, sci-fi horror movie. It is a sci-fi horror movie. I mean, it's a sci-fi movie with horror elements. And horror elements possibly in Jason X. But
you got to tip her first, though.
Exactly, you got to tip her. You know, sometimes you give her the tip, sometimes you decorate with the tip.
Well, that's how you got it.
That you're doing.
Look, that's how. Look, these are some high dollar horror films.
High dollar horror films. You know what I mean? Grandiose budgets. You know what I mean? You know, sometimes there's booties, bubbles, and butts in space, and you just got to do it. So if y'all want to go against your resident podcast DJ on that, do your Googles first. Comes with facts and receipts before you get destroyed and decimated. You know, Goku had to get Ultra before he even stepped to Jiren. I'm just saying, y'all, be ready. Be ready for that DM fight.
The Player Way.
Indeed. And going around to number 4, Derek had a little throwback. I got a little throwback action. We're going to take a trip back to 1968 to a dystopian future that we thought was a fantasy film. And in the very last frame, we find out it is completely a sci-fi film. And what if something like this were to happen, and what would become of us? What does it mean to be a human? So my number 4 fantasy film is the original Planet of the Apes.
Oh, nice.
Exactly.
Very nice. That's great. And those, even though, of course, special effects and everything on those, that's the only part that I really feel detracts from those holding up. Because the storyline is... It's right there.
Right.
They're shot for shot with the current ones. They really pulled it. That goes to show
even down to the fact that
powerful
every
that film
other
is.
remake of the Planet of the Apes was like a suitable remake, but the Mark Wahlberg remake was like, I'd rather watch the original of that and then go to the James Franco sequel. You know what I'm saying?
If I was forced to watch it, Mark Wahlberg's is the last one.
Yeah. So there you go.
I would have to watch.
Number 4, Derek.
My number 4 does also take a trip in the past, not as far, but this film did. If it was alive, it would be able to drink this year. And this is one of my favorite films. I will watch it anytime I have the opportunity, and it's called Gattaca with Ethan Hawke, Uma Thurman. This movie was definitely well
That's
before
a hard
its time.
chew, man. You're an intellectual motherfucker, dude. I can't get down on Gattaca like that. Gattaca's I've never made it through Gattaca. I've never made it through that. And Donnie Darko is another one I can't get through.
Donnie Darko doesn't age at all. No,
Donnie Darko's a good one to get through. But the reason why I love Gattaca, just down to the fact that the title is a genetic sequence.
It is
Gattaca. You know, like it. Like I said, this movie is well ahead of its time. I agree with that. If it was properly placed, this should have came out maybe.
I give you 100%. I agree with that.
This and I feel like Gattaca is prime for a remake.
Yeah, I really see Gattaca being prime for a remake if it's done.
Or a series. This should be a series. Like this should be an HBO series.
You keep coming with the hits, bro. That's what's up.
Yeah. So that's my number 4.
Nate, number 4.
My number 4 was actually, you mentioned it earlier. Her.
Boom!
I believe that the technology that's showcased in this movie is not in the near future.
It's already here.
Like the way he plays video games by the projection and manipulating the projections. Operating system, having someone in your ear constantly,
having someone in your house at all times.
Just basically a personal assistant. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good movie from start to finish.
And Joaquin Phoenix does such an amazing job. I think it's so crazy, at the risk of violating the Me Too movement for a second. Got to give it up to that lead actress, and I don't know why I can't remember her name.
Scarlett.
Scarlett
Johansson.
Yeah. She accomplished sounding sexy as fuck through a phone. I was like, I'd bone that, like, through the phone, like
after that.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I can see why he fell in love. Very sultry
Power
voice.
Up after that. Sultry voices. That's it. That's the only reason why I appreciate Emma Stone is her freaking voice. You know what I mean?
I'm not a big Emma Stone fan at all.
The only thing I appreciate about her is just her voice. That's it.
There you go.
I also appreciated how she caught the gravity. Spider-Man.
Nice. Well, that's what's up. That's so funny. I love that her made it on your list as well, man. It makes me feel validated. That's what's up. And speaking of me feeling validated, we're going on number 3. And my number 3 is
what was your number 4 again?
Planet of the Apes.
Okay.
The original.
All right.
So number 3, take me away. I don't mind as long as we go back in time. Back to the Future is my number 3, man. Back to the Future, man. I feel like it's got to be at least on everybody's honorable mention if it's not on your list. I mean, it is the ultimate time travel film. Sorry, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Because Bill and Ted's has too much fantasy element in there. There's no real science to Bill and Ted. So I feel like this is Back to the Future's it, bro. The dangers of time travel told in a Pepsi package. So digestible for every person to understand, and you know they're going to remake this film before Robert Zemeckis is dead. You know they're going to do it,
man.
You know they're going to do it.
You have to give this film proper credit, down to the fact where Tinker Hatfield actually engineered this shoe to give it to Michael J. Fox in October of 2015, just to give him this actual shoe. So it literally is the definitive statement of science fiction.
A whole class of new vehicle for entertainment was created just based on trying to deliver upon the promise of this. The Air Mag was actually created to deliver on the promise of this. When certain people make it to certain sports, World Series and things like that, based on what was happening in that. When we look at where we are as a society, we question if we're doing it right based on not being where we were in Back to the Future. Of any other film on this list, on any of our lists, I would venture to say no other film, while it's not at the top of the list on mine, or it may not be on Derreck's either, it still has the most impact on our life, everyday life, to date, in my opinion. And I'm gonna say it just like that.
The player way.
Back to the Future was on my honorable.
Yeah, that's what I said. Even though it didn't go any higher on your list, exactly. But it's still, of any other movie you're going to mention, none of them had the impact on our popular culture the way that that film has. And if Michael J. Fox didn't have the issues that he has, there would have already been additional sequels made.
And I don't really think he even has that many issues. He's very adept at connecting scatter plots. If you guys have questions why we're talking about honorable mentions and be like, well, why isn't that on your list? That's a very good question. That's a very good question. The reason why I have certain movies on my honorable mention and they're not on my list is because me personally, maybe I didn't appreciate the film in that level. Yeah. However, I'll still show respect. So I don't want somebody to be like, well, how are you going to have this but not this? Well, it's my list. What are you going to do?
And I can, well, and of course, and I can see why, and I can see, and I only put it at number 3. I can see why it doesn't rank on some people's list because of the sugary sweetness of it. It was made more watered down for the more general audience.
But it's,
so
it's a great
bit of a
science
popcorn
film.
seat filler. But
yeah,
it does respect sci-fi at all times, even when it references fantasy films. So there you go. Derek, number 3.
Man. Number 3. My number 3 was a revolutionary film. It set the precedent for all thereafter action films because it is a sci-fi action film. I made sure, of course, my research on this. It set the precedence for gunfights going thereafter, martial artists. People started actually choreographing it. You mentioned Bill and Ted. Well, I will pull actor from that movie to this one, and it was Keanu Reeves in The Matrix, 1999. Yep. This movie shocked everybody's world. I remember when I first saw her step into the phone booth, and then a truck hit the phone booth, and there was nobody, being confused, and then, oh, wait a minute, this happened. And science fiction to the max, to the fact of talk about Skynet is active. Skynet has properly outsourced humans to be what they're supposed to do now in the movie. Now, like I said, real life, Wachowski brothers wanted to make it the brains being the storage power and the server farm.
Exactly.
Which makes it even more of a sci-fi.
The actual original story in the script, the human beings were not batteries, they were hard drives. And so our collective memory was all put into input into one big dump so that they could have better processing power, which actually makes a lot of sense. But at that period of time,
that's technology that we're still trying to struggle with today.
Well, the idea of a computer needing more than 1 gig of memory, a computer with a gig of memory at that time was like mind blowing. So, let alone a phone that has 2 or 3 gigs of memory. So processing speed was not a priority at that time, and it was a little beyond our reach when the film was being developed. It's one of those things that if they remake the film, that's going to be what they do to fix it, and it'll keep it from being what destroyed The Matrix, in my opinion, is they kind of made it more of a fantasy film. We talked about that during the Fantasy Week because it was one of my top-ranking fantasy films. I think it was my top-ranking fantasy film. But if the film was being redone, it needs to stay in the sci-fi genre in order for it to remain intact. Or if they're going to go toward fantasy, they need to explain the forces around that make his powers possible. But the first Matrix itself is a pure action sci-fi film. And absolutely. Yeah, so yeah, we got to give it to you on that. All right. Nate, number 3.
Number 3 for me was Rogue One. I know it's a Star Wars movie, but to me, there's not really much of the Force in this. It's not a driving plot. So, it's actually showing the war between the rebels and the Empire, and it shows that rebels weren't as good as, it's just not all black and white. There's gray area. Yeah. And I think, to be honest, it's the best movie-wise in the Star Wars saga, I think. It's the most
I'll give it to you that of all of the Star Wars film, the most grounded in reality would be Rogue One. Yeah. I'll give you that. It's kind of controversial, though, to have a Star Wars film on a sci-fi. But we'll leave that up to the fans to argue that. I won't argue it here.
Well, I picked it because it doesn't really, the Force isn't a driving factor in this. There's no one trying to learn the Force. You have the blind Donnie Yen. That's as close to the Force as you get, and you got Vader. But other than one choke scene and him, plus it's got the best Vader scene in any.
It's got the best. It's got the best magic scene.
Sci-fi.
It's got the best magic scene in all of Star Wars in this film. So yeah, I agree with you. It's got the best Vader scene.
Oh, it is the best
cool,
Vader
man.
scene. Yeah.
It's your list. I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna let you have it. It's your list. But yeah, but I will say I do have respect for the fact that if there's one Star Wars film to put on the list, I'm glad it's this one and not any other one. Any other one, and I would have a fucking bitch fit. But yeah, there you go. We're good with that. Even down to the fact that the droid, they do kind of explain, like, they go into the idea of what does it mean to be a droid, for example. Like, what can droids accomplish? Like, do they have morals? Like, so that aspect is purely sci-fi. And the best character in the whole film is a droid. So the choices he makes, why he does things, how he explains it, he's the best droid in the entire series, and for that alone makes it a sci-fi film. So I give it to you on many levels. I give it to you many sides. All right, so number 2, my number 2, without too much pomp and circumstance, it's already been mentioned on this list, and it is The Matrix. Bullet time was not even something that people talked about. If you had said bullet time before this film came out, no one would know what you're talking about. The whole idea of a hacker being able to do more inside of his mind, and especially when you combine what the real story was supposed to be about, it helped you really understand how his powers work. Because if human brains are the memory and hard drive devices, then hacking a human brain can be done using its own devices. It's almost like a virus created of its own device. So, really well done film. It's self-explanatory. And the solution of the film is not a solution using bullets or physical abilities. In fact, his final solution in the last fight is he hacks the Matrix and makes the bullets fall from the air. Like he says, are you trying to tell me I'm going to dodge bullets? He's going to say, what, Derek?
You, when the time comes, you won't have to.
Exactly. And that's what sci-fi is all about. We're going to leave it just like that. Number 2, Derek.
Number 2, I do not have a loquacious interest for this one. This is my effing favorite, like, space-style movie. Okay, my number 1 is my number 1, but this is my favorite space-based movie, Interstellar. I loved this film. When I watched it...
A lot of people shit on Interstellar, dude. That's a good movie.
It's a great movie. And when I first
watched it... It didn't do well in theaters, but it's a good movie.
It's Christopher Nolan, so I'm already on the pineapple for that.
Yep.
Like, him and Coogler, they can go ahead and give me the bukkake. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. No pause, no phrasing, all intentional. With all intents and purposes on that one. And Interstellar was a great film. It made sense. Anything that you have questions about, the movie itself can explain. Like, you're not left to postulate, oh, did his totem fall over? Don't worry about that. That's a whole different type of movie. You have to, well, how do they know what a black hole looks like? They don't know because we don't know. However, they put science as best as they can, and they actually had true, legit, like, astrophysicists on set. Neil
deGrasse Tyson.
Don't even argue me, bro.
Neil deGrasse Tyson co-signs Interstellar.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, and then you actually have like a professor. I think they had a professor at Berkeley on set making sure. Yes. Oh, actually, it's not going to be like this. If you're going to have a black hole, it's going to be like this. Trust me. I don't care if it doesn't
down to
Hollywood
the fact
standards.
that they even venture to do what no other series has done before, which is to explain where black holes come from, which is essentially what they say in the film. They imply, but they also kind of speak on it, that it's in a future far distant from our own, even from the time in which he exists, the main character, Matthew McConaughey's character, humans create black holes. Like, exactly. we created it as an ability to connect with ourselves in the past in case some situation like this happens, to save ourselves.
And it's just brilliant because it makes sense. It's where we're headed as a planet. We already put corn and everything. All our foods are just a different version of salt or sugar. They speak on that, and then they speak on the actual science of where they need to go, the actual manipulation of how great multi-billion, trillion-dollar companies would handle it, how humans would handle it, how the actual connection between a father and daughter works in this movie. It's just a great film. Like, I mean, and what else can I say that hasn't already been said, about this suit looking bombed out and depleted?
Definitely. I love that all of our lists, there's a few sleeper hits here and there. And that's one of those films that Interstellar, people just now are starting to really appreciate how beautiful that film is. Beautiful. Thanks to the Interstellar meme. So there you go.
Like, it was so hardcore. I apologize. It was so hardcore where they had to make another movie with Matt Damon being in space for people to like him. You know what I'm saying? Like, they had to make The Martian just to be like, because man,
that's what's up. Nate, number 2.
Number 2 for me is Jurassic Park.
Nice. Which is Derreck's number 1.
The only reason why it wasn't number 1 is because, honestly, it spawned off shitty sequels, which I think hindered the brand quite a bit.
There you go. That's what's up.
Other than that, like, I loved it as a kid, still love it now. It's enjoyable. It was scary. It was frightening. Made me want to, honestly, see some dinosaurs.
I love Derreck's face right now. If y'all can see it, I'm like, if you've listened to our podcast, there have been many times that I thought I was right about Derreck, but I was like on the fence about it. This is like the one time I'm 100% though. So Nate and Derreck both have a great number 1. We're gonna say
that was my number 2.
Oh, that's number 2. Okay.
Yeah.
What I was gonna say is let's save a lot of the conversation for that number 1 because that's when we can really go deep into it. Balls deep. We're talking about balls deep. Exactly. That's what's up, Nate. Great choice. Number 2, bro. All right. Number 2. Oh, so now we're at number 1. Number 1.
We are at number 1. We are at number 1. And,
let's just go ahead and go to number 1 with Derreck. We're going to do it out of order. Derreck, go ahead, number 1.
Go. No, it's time for your number 1. I'm
go
just
ahead.
waiting.
We just finished number 2 of the same name. We might as well go on.
All right. I even went and grabbed my original copy of the book that I read before this came out. Michael Crichton, Jurassic Park. You can tell the wear and tear on this one and the number of times. It is Jurassic Park.
And it makes me so angry that they don't actually start out Jurassic Park the way that book starts out.
Yes,
the way that book starts out, it gives you so much of an understanding of what this
prologue,
film is really
the
about.
Bite of the Raptor. The tropical rain fell. Man, don't even get me started. I have the Lost World up there too because that book. Now I'm
gonna mute my microphone and I'm gonna let you guys have a love fest right now. You guys go ahead.
I'm not one to necessarily negate from a movie just because of the sequels because whether sequels are good or bad, they wouldn't have happened without the original. And if the original sucked, they wouldn't have done sequels. That's just my own personal thought. But I love this movie because, I loved dinosaurs when I was a kid. I wanted to be a paleontologist / archaeologist and figure out a way to bring them back to life. I like the dinosaurs very much. And I was that kid that would be in the library reading all these books to figure out a way, how can we have dinosaurs? And then this book, and then that movie. And so I was just star-studded. There was a Brachiosaurus on the screen. This movie was about dinosaurs, and it had less than 15 minutes of actual dinosaurs in the movie. That's, like, you got to give them credit. So that means they obviously filled the other 2 hours with great dialogue, great acting, action sequences. Like, it was... I mean, shoot! Samuel L. Jackson was in this movie. You know what I'm saying? Please! God damn it! You know what I'm saying?
In all fairness, Samuel L. Jackson's in, like, every movie.
Every movie, yes. But this was before he was in every movie. At least that. This was before he was in every movie.
Nate, I cut you off earlier because I knew this was going to be the big discussion of number 1. I just wanted to get right to it and not delay it. Why did you love it as one of your top tier, your number 2, man? What was it about it?
Mostly childhood nostalgia, honestly. I just kind of think back and remember how it made me feel as a kid. Unlike Derreck, I didn't want to be a paleontologist or an archaeologist. What kid didn't love dinosaurs? And to see it on the big screen come to life, which I think still, the effects of this movie still hold up.
Yeah, they really do.
Yeah, they had some badass animatronics back then.
Yeah,
and
that's what helps it out.
Yeah.
It's a movie, same thing. Like, I've seen it dozens of times. If it's ever on TV, I'll sit there and watch it.
Okay, to even go to what we were talking about earlier about how a film has impact on other films thereafter. While bullet time wasn't discovered in this film, a little thing called a glass of water sitting in a car. Think of how many movies since then have had that thing happen.
Have had water ripples when something big is happening
in the area. And there's a glass of water.
Mm-hmm.
Fun fact.
They've been in like Superman movies.
Fun fact of how they did that, they took a guitar and they ran the amp into the ground and just had them blasting on the E chord to make that water vibrate right next to the car. And just the innovation to think, how can we make these perfect ripples show up in an iconic scene that's in everything. You've even said it on this very podcast, right here on the Player Way podcast, where we do life and media and help you curate it.
The Player Way.
Where you've said the only movie that can do that is Jurassic Park or anything tied to it. Anything else, Superman, you're not making ripples, dude. You're knocking buildings down with your steps, dude. Chill out. Man, great movie. My favorite sci-fi movie of all time. I just that's where I'm at. Shout out to Nate for that strong number 2.
Strong number 2. And then what we're gonna do is because Nate had that strong number 2, we're gonna give him the top number 1 spot. So I'm gonna do number 1 first, and then we're gonna let him in the number 1s right there. Sound good?
Mm-hmm. Ding, clink.
Give him the top spot. Indeed, I got you, homie. Boom. And my number 1 is a film that most people think sci-fi has to be done in the future or in the present. But this sci-fi film actually takes place in the past. A lot of sci-fi films take place in the future, like 1984. At that time, 1984 was so far away. Or Fahrenheit 451 was supposedly a dystopian future. Everything was about the year 20XX, as they used to say on the Sega Genesis, whenever a game took place in the future. Or 19XX.
XX.
Okay,
yes.
Exactly. But this film actually takes place way back in the day, and it was the film that really introduced me to the ideas of Nikola Tesla. This film really explores that there's something magical about science when it's done the right way. And where magic isn't real, but science is, as Michael Caine says in this film, some things he said you found real magic, and real magic is science. And that's ultimately what sci-fi is about. Is it's about ceasing to try to look for magic and realizing we have magic right here on Earth at all times. And therefore, my film is all about The Prestige.
Boom.
The Prestige is my number 1. Such an amazing film that you think this film is all going to be about magic, and even down to the fact that you think the big magic trick of the film is a magic trick, and you find out that it was just a trick all along. And they give you such a big hint with the Chinese guy with the bowl between his legs. You're like, it's not really magic. He just trained himself. And the lead character, Hugh Jackman, knows this. Hugh Jackman.
It only could have been better.
That was the original. This movie was the original.
That's where he got the idea for Logan. Well, I got an idea too, Hugh Jackman.
Dude, exactly, dude.
One old, one young.
But yeah, dude, they actually, they basically explain that Nikola Tesla builds this device that creates cloning and makes it possible. They don't explain how he does it, but by going after a real figure in human history, they show you that whatever it is, it's science-based. It's not magic. It's science-based. He created something that actually did this, and he should have never did it. That cautionary tale of science fiction. So there you go. Perfect. My number 1, The Prestige. If it's on, I always watch it.
Man, that's a great man.
Yeah.
Man. Oh, I would have never. Not that I would have never guessed it, but I wouldn't have thought to have it on this list. I wouldn't have thought to have it on this list. But
and and going back to nostalgia,
reasoning.
if you knew me back in like 8th grade, I was all into magic. I mean, I still have magic kits here at the house right now, and every now and again I'll break out a 3-rope trick or a coin trick or something like that. So I'm really into that. So to see a film that really deals with physics and things like that, they just dealt with real mechanics and stuff. It was.
It's not magic, BK. It's an illusion. It's an illusion, yes. BK.
Exactly, Joe Bluth. All right, Michael. And Nate, number 1, Dato.
Number 1 for me is a movie called Jupiter Ascending. Starring
Boy, get out! Get out! Get out! Get off the planet! I know you're not telling me.
I was about to say, this dude is shit on this.
The Wachowskis only made one good movie.
I was about to say, well, no, they made 2 good movies, but only one really good sci-fi. I'll say that.
That was great.
Because they made
argue with that.
Because have you seen the one with Jennifer Tilly that came out before The Matrix that got them their deal?
No one's seen
Very
that
good movie. Very good movie. Very sexy film too.
My number one was mentioned
Talk about
before,
sexy
and same thing. It's like I go by how many times I've seen this, and this was up there with Jurassic Park, except it didn't spawn off shitty sequels, and it's Back to the Future.
There you go.
I love all three
There
of
you
them.
go.
Yeah. I think all three of them are equally good, but if I had to pick one, I'd pick the first one.
First one, of course.
This one made me want to travel in time.
That's it.
I used to, as a kid, go around try to find objects that just looked weird.
Yep.
So I could try to put them together and make a time machine. Like I take
Dude, I
like
got a
broken
flux
light bulbs
capacitor
and
on my
take the
wall right
fucking
now. Yes.
spark plugs. Thinking like, all right, if I gather enough of these, I can make a time machine.
Dude, every time you saw a DeLorean on the street, you freaked the flip out.
Yeah,
Dude, Ready
Just to
Player
see-
One has got me excited because it has a DeLorean in it.
Remember when we saw that one in New York? We
Yes.
lost our mind.
Absolutely, dude. Every time you lose your mind. Like, to this day, if any of us gets rich, we will build a replica of that car. If not the Batmobile from the original Tim Burton. I mean, come on.
Shout out, Nate, for your number one. Shout out to part 121G as in golf at O'ReillyAutoParts.com. That's all I'm going to say. Take the effort
Yes.
to look up part 121G as in golf at
O'Reilly.
Auto. Yeah.
And I'm not
So,
going to ruin
Nate,
what it is. And I'm not going to ruin what it is.
Nate, if you can, take your time to look up that part number, 121 golf.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what's
Worth
up.
it.
I think this might be our best list thus far, man. I feel
So
like it was a
strong.
very well-rounded list. I felt like
Flux capacitor.
there you go. Exactly. You can
See,
buy
people
one.
out there who argue for no reason, a quick Google search can answer so many questions. Just a quick Google search away.
Let me Google search that for you.
I assume that's what it was because I don't
Yeah.
think anybody knew any other part on the DeLorean.
I believe
Well,
the window
either that-
louvers were also a very big
And the Mr. Fusion.
yes.
Mr. Fusion. Yeah, there was definitely parts that people knew.
And what was it? The Lebanese terrorists? What were they?
Yeah,
What were they?
exactly. The plutonium. Exactly.
What a great
I
80s
think they were
plot right
Libyans,
there.
weren't they?
They were Libyans.
Libyan. All right, there it was.
Libyans.
Yeah.
They were Libyans, exactly. That's what's up.
Apologies to the people of Lebanon.
Exactly.
Sorry,
exactly.
y'all. Sorry, y'all. There was an L. I was out. My bad.
It's the flat earthers over here.
Yeah.
So what's coming up in
Exactly.
theaters this coming weekend?
Who don't understand how gravity works. This weekend, on April Fool's weekend, Dato?
There you go. I set that up for somebody. I set that up for somebody. If somebody could have said any movie, and we could have had a really good discussion and left it for the people online. Eric, come on, man! I was trying to let anybody say any movie, and then for us to play April Fool's joke on the people who are listening to this podcast. But
What's
now we
great
gave them
is
a
we
leg
still
up.
could have. What's crazy
No,
is we
you
still
said
could
April,
have.
You mean April Fool's weekend? Oh, got
So what? It's still April Fool's weekend. They wouldn't have known. I'm
Yes,
looking
they-
for Black
come on,
Panther
dude.
2 coming out this weekend.
Anyway, happy April Fool's weekend to you guys coming up. Absolutely. I did hear that Avengers is going to be actually. Did y'all hear Avengers is getting pushed up an additional week?
Yes, which means I had to adjust my trip again, thanks to Marvel
Exactly.
Studios, just to come
Well,
see
it
this.
pisses me off because I've already bought my tickets for it.
Yes.
Nate, did you hear about that? Yeah. Yes. The Avengers is pushed up an additional week.
They're just giving May, and what's crazy is they're still because they're getting all the money in May anyway because of Solo, so they've owned
Wait,
February and March.
You mean
because of-
to even earlier than the 27th of April?
Yes,
Exactly.
absolutely. Yes.
like I had my tickets bought for the May weekend, then I had to redo it for April 26th. Now I have to do it for the 19th.
The official trailer for the earlier release is going to be coming up this weekend. If that helps you out any.
Are you sure? I'm not seeing anything
Now,
online
trust me,
about
it's going to come out.
release date.
Here, I'll send
Yes.
you the link, Nate. Okay.
That's you found the story. It's coming out on April 1st, right? The trailer's dropping on April 1st. So Nate, now do you see it?
Yes.
The link. So there you go. That's what's up. So we'll be talking about that on the next episode as well. I can't wait for that trailer to come out, ladies and gentlemen, everyone in between. Look out for that new trailer dropping on April 1st. That's what's up. If there's nothing else for the good of the order,
I'm good.
All right, Nate, anything?
I'm good.
All right, well then I've been your resident podcast DJ, BK, helping you understand how to do your content creation and entertainment
The Player Way.
along with my co-captains, Nate
That's me.
and Derreck.
Corrupting the system, y'all already know who it is, the urban cowboy at his finest.
Absolutely. You can catch us each and every week at playlifeyourway.com. Constant contact is happening on a daily basis with tons of content creation done.
The Player Way.
And if there's nothing else, Nate, send us off just right.
Peace out, Rabbit.
Exactly. We'll holler at y'all next week. Thanks for listening to the Player Way podcast. Recorded in a single take from Los Angeles, California, Dallas, Texas, and Atlanta, Georgia, by Nathan Peterson, Derek Lewis, and BK Jackson.
And I'm Darren Marlar, the majestic voice of the Player Way podcast.
Our opening theme is titled Bound by Ricky Remedy, courtesy of Elysian Records. And our closing theme is titled Coconut King Diaries by Xander, spelled Zahnder. You can find this music by both Ricky Remedy and Xander, and many more tracks on SoundCloud. And remember, no matter what choices you make or paths you follow, just make sure you do it
The Player Way.
See you next week.